Kendra Moses is the Plated Traditions channel. Welcome to the Plated Traditions channel with your host Kendra Moses.
Hello, welcome to the Plated Traditions channel. My name is Kendra Moses, and as always, we have our resident chef Kai off camera. So our Halloween special became a little peculiar, so I wanted to make sure that we revisit the topic of the language of cooking. The language of cooking is very important because, like I said last week, if you don't understand exactly what you're reading, it's going to be difficult for you to execute anything properly or to even comprehend or understand exactly what's being asked of you. So, to start off our show today, we have a few examples about terminology that is found in a typical recipe, and we're going to try to break those elements down to not only get you to understand for clarity, but to also to get you to understand for confusion's sake as well. I think it's important to know both aspects of that, especially when learning, because there will be times where you just won't understand something, and I don't want that to be a thing where you feel like it's just you or is something wrong with what you're doing per se. It's just something that happens when you're first starting off for anything, any aspect of learning. There's something that's going to confuse you. There's something that's going to be new. And I want to hopefully not confuse you in the process, but to get you to the point where you understand where the confusion may set in, or that somebody does realize that this can be misconstrued for one thing versus the other. So, coming up, we have a few examples of that.
This is Plated Traditions. Red, white, dally, white, white, benign. White, dally, white, white, benign. White, dally, white, white, benign. White, dally, white.
So to give you an example of this, the recipe may tell you that they want you to brown the meat. Now, for any English speaker or any English reader, the word brown in our everyday conversation is an adjective. It should say something that signifies a certain color. Then one day in cooking, it shows up as an instruction. It was you're asked to do something. So that adjective that you're used to hearing in everyday conversation has now turned into a verb. This is something that you're requested to do, in which you still get the result of the word brown in the adjective sense. It may get a bit confusing to a beginner cook, especially if their nerves are already frazzled. For a further example of this, off the top of my head, I know that there are 3 different terms in cooking that are typically common in a recipe, whether you're cooking a dessert or you're cooking a savory dish. And they are sear, brown, and caramelize. All 3 of those words act as verbs in which the main purpose is to actually create a brown coloring on your food. I guess they make it simpler in the beginning stages of you learning how to cook. Most of the time, when you see the word brown, you're usually looking at meat. And it's usually a grounded meat, something that you need to cook through. So we're thinking mostly about our red meats, like ground beef, ground lamb, veal, things of that nature. So the word sear also comes up frequently when dealing with meat. Either sear or in some places the word seal. And the word seal is a more direct interpretation of what sear means. In the process of searing or sealing, you're getting a pan up to high heat with some form of fat. A certain oil or a certain fat that does not burn at a high temperature. Because even though you won't be doing this process for a long period of time, it's usually not advisable to use something like butter. in the searing process because of the milk contents, and the milk contents tend to burn at very high temperatures. So the whole purpose of searing the meat is to hold in the meat's juices and to make sure that nothing escapes. So you're actually literally sealing in the integrity of the meat that you have. So another word that is used in the process of browning food is caramelize. Now, the word caramelize gets a little trickier because caramelize is used for produce, protein, and sweets and sugar. So, for meat, you may actually see the words interchangeably brown, sear, seal, and caramelize. The process of caramelization depends on sugars. However, proteins don't possess sugar, but it's still used in certain recipes and certain instructions as a process of browning meat. So with that said, it's usually referred to as a whole different terminology called the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction means basically the same thing. You're taking a piece of meat and at medium to high or high temperature, you're browning your meats on all sides to seal in its flavor, its juice, and its integrity. Humans, we're basically protein. We're protein. We don't really produce sugar. What our body does is it holds sugar until the time that is needed to be turned into fuel. The liver will go through a process and it will take glycogen or any other amino acid and transform it into glucose. And the glucose is a form of sugar and is used to help aid the body in what it needs. Most of the time, like I said, is fuel to continue to operate as normally as possible. So now separating ourselves from protein, but still focusing on the terminology of caramelize or caramelization. You will see this word frequently for vegetation or produce. It makes more sense in vegetation and produce because most vegetation and produce has natural sugar in it. You think something like a tomato, for example, since a tomato is still widely ambiguous as whether or not we want to call it as a fruit or a vegetable. It has fructose in it. And fructose is a natural sugar that is usually found in fruits and vegetables at times. And fructose is something that it acts like any other sugar. It acts like the sugar that you put on your table. It's no different. Actually, these things are so similar that if you look at the suffix of the word, when you see a word ending in O-S-E, either referencing sugar or it is sugar. So with the caramelization process, it's similar to the meat. You're still taking a pan at considerably high heat, not as high as meat, because you're not trying to just create a crust around it. You're actually going through the process of trying to thoroughly cook your vegetation. So you want it at a more of a medium high temperature, in which you're taking, still again, you're taking fats of some sort, and you're letting it just cook down. And then when the process of the cooking down, you'll see the outside of it become brown. You're not actually creating like a hard crackling caramel over your vegetation. You're just creating like a thin skin of brownness that creates flavor and is also great for presentation. Now, to step away from proteins and vegetation, we're going to still concentrate on the word caramelize, but then we're going to focus on caramelize and caramel. Because in order to make caramel, you're going through the caramelization process by heating up sugar in a pan. Sugar, nothing else. And you sit there with the pan. Don't walk away because this process can get very quick. So you don't want burnt sugar that does nothing for anyone. So you let the sugar heat over the pan, not as high as meat. Similar to the vegetation, we're thinking about medium high, and you let the sugar just sit there until it gets to the process when the compounds break down. When the compounds break down, they turn into a liquid. And when they turn into a liquid form, that's where you go through the process of continuously stirring it, making sure that all the granules have broken down. Then at that point, you could start to add your butter once you still to see a browning of your sugar. If you're making a sauce, then you can add heavy cream. And if you want to flavor with anything, like make it like a salted caramel, that's where you start to add components like that. So, like I said, there's a lot of different terminology that usually are interchangeable between different aspects of cooking, different techniques of cooking. And browning, searing or sealing, or the Maillard reaction, and the caramelization process are all similar but very different in regards to how you actually want your food prepared and how it will turn out.
We interrupt this program for a special message. Plated Traditions. Special message. We interrupt this program.
Get ready for the grudge match of the century. And it all comes to you live from the Grammatic Arena. It's Donuts. Versus Donuts. As we wait for our contestants to enter the ring, let's do a quick recap of what got us to this epic match. Our contestants are now entering the ring. First is the D-O-N-U herself, Donuts. Followed by Mr. D-O-U-G-H-N-U-P. Yes, that is quite a mouthful, and that is why the match is so important. Oh, what's this? Well, shut the back door while training for the next match. I don't care, has just been KO'd by just give me a donut. I don't care, just give me a donut, has just dominated the main event. And look at the joy on the crowd's faces. Thanks for watching. Good night.
This program has been sponsored by Play Traditions Recipe Journal, available at Amazon.com. Thank you again for joining us for another week. We hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.